If you've ever woken up with the absolute best intentions, a perfectly planned schedule, and a fierce desire to finally be consistent today, only to end the night doom scrolling on your phone feeling completely defeated, well, this explainer is exactly for you. We've all been there, right? But what we're exploring today is not just another cringe motivational lecture telling you to try harder. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how we understand human behavior. For decades, we have been sold this deeply flawed narrative. We're told that success is all about willpower, grit, and just white-knuckling your way through temptation. But as our source material reveals, relying purely on your daily supply of willpower, it's ultimately a losing strategy. It's an exhausting psychological battle against our own neurology. So it's time we stop fighting our brains and start outsmarting them instead.
So, what actually happens when our willpower inevitably fails? We all know that feeling of profound psychological fatigue. You start the day strong, totally dialed in, but by, say, 4 p.m., the constant friction of fighting off instant gratification just wears you down. Suddenly, the temptation to skip the gym, order takeout, or open up social media becomes overwhelmingly loud. Now, listen carefully. This isn't a moral failing on your part. It's literally just human nature. Our brains are biologically hardwired to seek comfort and conserve energy. And what's actually incredibly comforting to know is that this is not some modern problem created by smartphones. To see just how far back this struggle goes and how to completely conquer it, we need to look at an absolutely incredible story from the year 1830 involving one of the greatest writers in history.
Let me take you back to the summer of 1830, to the famous French author Victor Hugo. Hugo was facing an impossible situation. He had promised his publisher a brand new book a year earlier, but he spent 12 solid months just massively procrastinating. He was entertaining guests, pursuing side projects, completely avoiding the hard work. His publisher, understandably furious, set a hard deadline less than 6 months away. Hugo knew himself. He knew his willpower wasn't going to just magically appear out of nowhere, so he concocted this brilliant, bizarre plan. He gathered all of his clothes and had an assistant physically lock them away in a large chest. Left with nothing but a large shawl, he literally could not leave his house. Stripped of the ability to go outdoors and socialize, he stayed in his study and wrote furiously. And that, believe it or not, is how The Hunchback of Notre Dame was published 2 weeks early. What Hugo intuitively stumbled upon there is what psychologists today call a commitment device. Essentially, a commitment device is a choice you make right now in the present that completely controls your actions in the future. It binds you to good habits and rigidly restricts you from bad ones. He realized a profound truth. Sometimes, success is less about making good habits incredibly easy and much more about making bad habits practically impossible. This completely flips the script on traditional behavior change. Instead of trying to smooth the path towards your goals, you intentionally drop a massive wall of friction in front of your distractions. By locking his clothes away, Hugo didn't increase his internal desire to write. He simply eliminated every other alternative.
This brilliantly illustrates the eternal conflict going on inside our minds, this relentless war between our present self and our future self. Your present self, it craves instant gratification, ease, and comfort right now. But your future self is the one who actually reaps the rewards from those difficult, consistent, long-term choices, like studying, saving money, or putting in the hours at the gym. A commitment device acts as an unbreakable bridge between these two versions of you. When you are feeling highly motivated in the present moment, you use that fleeting burst of energy to lock in your future behavior. I honestly like to think of this as the ultimate act of self-compassion. You are relieving your exhausted future present self from the immense burden of having to make the right choice when they are tired, vulnerable, and completely drained.
Now, this concept of commitment devices scales far beyond just individual authors. It can reshape entire organizations and systems. To see this in action, we looked at Dayton, Ohio in the mid-1800s. A man named John Henry Patterson opened a small supply store for coal miners. The store had plenty of customers, a great location, but Patterson was struggling to make any money at all. The reason? His own employees were actively stealing from him. Back then, receipts were just tossed in an open drawer. No cameras, no tracking software. Patterson quickly realized that pleading with his employees, relying on their motivation to be honest, or trying to constantly micromanage them was utterly useless. He couldn't change human nature through sheer willpower or moral speeches alone.
So Patterson didn't try to change the people. He changed the environment. He spent $50 on a brand new invention called Ritty's Incorruptible Cashier, which was the very first cash register. This machine automatically locked the cash and the receipts inside after every single transaction. And the result? Employee theft vanished practically overnight. Within 6 months, Patterson's business went from losing money to making a $5,000 profit. To put that into perspective, that's the equivalent of more than $100,000 today. The crucial takeaway here is that Patterson didn't miraculously change the morals of his employees. He automated ethical behavior by making stealing physically impossible. He took the choice completely out of their hands.
So how do we build our own psychological cash registers in our modern lives? Well, we can intentionally design environments where failing is physically restricted before the temptation even arises. Think about athletes who have to make weight for a big competition. They will literally leave their wallets at home during the week, so they physically cannot buy fast food if a sudden craving hits. Or say you're at a restaurant trying to cut calories. You can ask the waiter to box half your meal before it's even served to you. Because if you wait until that giant plate is sitting right under your nose and tell yourself, I'll just eat half, your willpower is inevitably going to fail. By eliminating the temptation before it even appears, you are virtually guaranteeing your success.
Of course, the environment we interact with the absolute most today is digital, and modern technology is literally a masterclass in feeding our impulsive present self. It is meticulously designed by engineers to remove all friction from consuming content. Netflix automatically plays the next episode, so you don't even have to press a button. You just have to keep your eyes open. Social media algorithms provide this endless expanse of distraction at the slightest hint of boredom. Right now, the average person spends over 2 hours a day on social media. That is a staggering amount of your life surrendered to impulse. But here's the beautiful flip side. Just as technology can be used to hijack our attention, it can also be weaponized to relentlessly enforce our discipline.
We can deploy digital commitment devices to fight back and reclaim our time. For instance, habits expert Nir Eyal bought a simple, cheap outlet timer connected to his internet router that cuts the power exactly at 10 p.m. every single night, forcing his entire household to disconnect and go to bed. The author of our source text even experimented with having his assistant log him out of all social media and reset the passwords every Monday morning. He physically couldn't access them all week, and she'd only hand over the new passwords on Friday afternoon. And the most profound realization from that experiment? Once the bad habit became truly impossible, his natural motivation to work on meaningful tasks actually returned. When you completely remove that mental candy from your environment, your brain stops craving it, and it naturally recalibrates to doing deep, fulfilling work.
And this brings us to a brilliantly simple strategy outlined in our source material: one-time actions that lock in good habits. These are single, highly practical decisions you make today that require just a tiny bit of upfront effort but deliver massive, compounding behavioral returns for the rest of your life. Take nutrition. Simply buying smaller plates permanently reduces your caloric intake without you ever having to consciously think about portion control again. For sleep, buying blackout curtains or taking the TV out of your bedroom permanently alters your nighttime routine. You make the purchase exactly once, and you automatically get better sleep every single night thereafter. You're permanently upgrading the default state of your life.
And this logic effortlessly extends to almost every area of your life. By automating your finances, like enrolling in an automatic savings plan or a payroll deduction for retirement, you completely remove the burden of daily decision-making from your exhausted brain. You never have to actively choose to save money. The system just does it for you in the background. Buying a supportive ergonomic chair is a one-time choice that automates better posture. Adopting a dog forces you to get up and walk every single day. These choices involve putting external systems or technology to work for you. It transforms actions that are normally hard and annoying into behaviors that are completely frictionless and totally reliable.
So, to synthesize the powerful psychology we've uncovered in this explainer, you absolutely have to stop relying on waking up feeling motivated. Motivation is fragile, it's fleeting. Instead, you need to create what we call an environment of inevitability. You invert the traditional rules of behavior change. You make those bad habits overwhelmingly, painfully difficult to perform. You implement those one-time actions that deliver ongoing value, and you lean heavily on systems, environmental design, and technology to force your own hand. When you do this, making the right choice isn't some heroic daily struggle anymore. It just becomes the absolute default. You are no longer hoping for a good outcome, you are systematically guaranteeing it.
And that leads us perfectly to this profound thought from mathematician and philosopher Alfred North Whitehead, which beautifully summarizes our entire journey today. He wrote, "Civilization advances by extending the number of operations we can perform without thinking about them. When you automate as much of your basic life and good habits as possible, you stop wasting your precious mental energy fighting yourself over whether or not to go to the gym, or whether or not to eat the junk food. You hand that burden over to the authority of your environment, and in doing so, you free up your mind to pour its energy into your highest level of growth and creativity. Because true freedom isn't having unlimited choices, it's having your success so deeply automated that it becomes inevitable." So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final question.
What is one commitment device you can set up today, right now, that will permanently lock out your worst distraction tomorrow?